Picture this for a moment. Every single struggle you wrestle with, every creeping fear, every quiet jab of self-doubt might not just be a roadblock to push past. What if instead it's a treasure map? Its faded lines and cryptic markings leading you straight to your true purpose. Imagine that the secret to unlocking who you really are and what you're meant to do in this wild, sprawling world is hidden in the very parts of yourself you've spent years trying to ignore, shove down, or pretend don't exist. It's a radical thought, isn't it? Today we're going to dive headfirst into one of the most transformative, mind-bending ideas ever cooked up in the realms of psychology and philosophy. Carl Jung's theory of the shadow. This isn't some dry academic lecture or a tangle of abstract nonsense. It's a hands-on, soul-shaking journey to unearth truths that can turn your life inside out, in the best possible way. By the time we're through, you won't just understand what your shadow is, you'll see how it's clutching the keys to your purpose, your untapped potential, and a freedom you might not even realize you're craving. And trust me, the final revelation waiting at the end of this road, it could be the most powerful, life-altering insight you've ever stumbled across. Let's start with the man himself. Carl Jung, a Swiss pioneer who plumbed the depths of the human psyche, believed the shadow is the unconscious slice of ourselves we reject or disown. It's a messy stew of all the traits, desires, and quirks we've labeled unacceptable, stuff we're ashamed of, afraid of, or just too uncomfortable to face. Maybe it's a streak of selfishness you hate admitting, a flicker of envy you bury, or a raw, untamed passion you've convinced yourself is impractical. For me, I once caught myself bristling at a friend's relentless ambition, only to realize later it wasn't her I was mad at, it was my own hunger for more that I'd locked away. That's the shadow at work. Jung argued that this hidden part isn't just a dumping ground for our flaws, it's a paradox, a shadowy vault that holds the seeds of our greatest strengths and the blueprint for a life that actually feels worth living. Think about it. How often do you sidestep thoughts or habits because they make you uneasy? How many times do you catch yourself judging someone else for something you secretly spot in your own reflection? Ever had one of those moments where someone's actions set you off way more than they should? That over-the-top reaction, it's a neon sign pointing to your shadow. Jung put it in words that hit like a thunderclap. Everything that irritates us about others can lead us to an understanding of ourselves. The shadow isn't just a pile of darkness to sweep under the rug. It's a wellspring of potential, a buzzing energy we've buried because we're too scared or embarrassed to let it breathe. Take a second to zoom in on your own life. Are there pieces of yourself you keep stashed away, out of sight from everyone, even yourself? Maybe it's a fear of crashing and burning that gnaws at you, a slow-burning anger you pretend isn't there, or a jealousy that stings more than you'd care to admit. Or perhaps it's something softer, a dream you've dismissed as childish, a longing you've told yourself is too wild to chase. I knew someone who swore she'd never be that emotional artist type, only to find years later that painting was the one thing that made her feel alive. She'd just been too afraid of failing at it to try. What if those parts of you aren't blemishes to bleach out, but messages scratched in code, waiting for you to crack them open? Jung believed that when we muster the courage to face our shadow, we can pull it into the light of our conscious mind. He called this process individuation, a fancy word for becoming whole, stitching together the shiny and the rough edges of who you are. It's not a cakewalk, let's be real. It demands bravery, a willingness to get brutally honest with yourself, and a readiness to step into the foggy unknown where easy answers don't live. But the rewards, they're beyond measure: clarity, strength, a life that fits you like it was custom-made. Jung described individuation as the adventure of discovering your true self, not just the polished-up version you flash at the world, but the full, unfiltered you, with all your light and all your shadow in tow. He was convinced our biggest leaps forward don't come from running from the shadow but from turning around, looking it in the eye and saying, "Okay, let's talk. Let's borrow a page from the stories we've grown up with." Every hero worth their salt has a showdown with their own darkness. Take Hercules, the Greek muscle man. He didn't just slug it out with lions and hydras, he had to wrestle his own rage, his own messy humanity. Or think of Luke Skywalker in Star Wars, swinging his lightsaber at external foes but only stepping into his power after facing the murky depths within himself. These aren't just campfire tales, they're mirrors held up to our own psychological quests. The question is staring you down now. Are you ready to take that first shaky step? Are you willing to stop sprinting from the parts of yourself you've dodged and instead ask, hey, what are you trying to teach me? It's not about perfection, it's about curiosity. Jung's philosophy flips the script. Your shadow isn't the villain in your story, it's your guide. It whispers to you in ways you might have brushed off before. It sneaks into your dreams, those weird recurring ones that leave you puzzled when you wake up. It tugs at you through your fears, your gut reactions, even the people who drift into your orbit. Ever had a dream that loops back night after night, like a movie stuck on repeat, or felt an odd pull toward a person, a place, a random idea you can't shake? That's your shadow tapping you on the shoulder, saying, pay attention. The first move is awareness, tuning in to the moments when your emotions flare up or your reactions feel like they're on steroids. Those are your clues, little arrows pointing to what's been stashed in the basement of your mind. Step 2 is trickier: acceptance. This doesn't mean unleashing every wild impulse or wallowing in every dark thought. It's about nodding at these parts and saying, I see you and you're mine. No judgment, just recognition. Imagine how it'd feel to stop flinching at your flaws and start seeing them as tools in your kit. Picture the weight lifting off your chest, the confidence surging in as you embrace the whole damn package of who you are. We're not done yet, stick with me. We're about to unpack how to spot your shadow, weave it into your life, and turn what feels like a storm cloud into a spotlight. The deepest gems still ahead, a roadmap to not just wrestle with your shadow but let it lead you to your destiny. Let's plunge deeper into this mysterious shadowy world and figure out how cracking it open can unlock not just your purpose but a peace that settles into your bones. The shadow doesn't sit quietly, it's a shapeshifter, popping up in your habits, your relationships, the way you lose it when you least expect to. Ever had one of those moments where you snap, say, at a coworker's dumb joke and later think, whoa, where'd that come from? That's your shadow elbowing its way out, hijacking the controls when your reason's off duty. Why does it pack such a punch? Jung said it's because it's unconscious. The more you deny it, the more it festers, gaining steam in the dark. It's like trying to hold a beach ball underwater with one hand. You can manage for a bit, but the second you slip it blasts back up, splashing everywhere. Now flip that. What if you let it surface, studied its curves, traced where it came from? How much lighter would you feel? How much more in charge of your own story? One of Jung's sharpest tools for understanding this is projection. When we disown parts of ourselves, they don't vanish, they hitch a ride on someone else. Ever met someone who grates on you for no clear reason? Maybe they're loud, flashy, too much, and you can't stand it. Jung would say that's your shadow waving hello. If you wrestle with feeling small, you might sneer at someone oozing confidence, or if you've smothered your own wild side, you might cringe at someone living loud and free. I once knew a guy who'd rant about lazy people non-stop. Turns out he was terrified of his own urge to slow down and ditch the grind. It's not a glitch, it's a mirror. The world throws back what we won't claim. Jung dropped this gem: knowing your own darkness is the best method for dealing with the darkness of other people. So think about it. Who in your life sets you off? A smug boss, a flaky friend, a sibling who's got it all together? Don't just stew on them. Ask, what's this kicking up in me? What am I slapping onto them that's really mine? This isn't about pointing fingers at yourself. It's about scooping up the scattered bits of you and bringing them home.
Here, quote cease.
Where it gets electric. Your shadow isn't just baggage, it's tied to your purpose. The stuff you've locked away often cradles your rarest gifts. Take someone who's choked their creativity because failing feels like death. Once they lean into it, they might find it's the thread to their life's work. I had a friend who swore she'd never be one of those dreamers, always playing it safe, until she picked up a guitar one day and realized music was her oxygen. She'd just been too petrified of sucking at it to start. Jung insisted purpose isn't some shiny prize you hunt down out there. It's inside, blooming when you line up with your real self, shadow included. He wrote, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are." How do you kick that off? Get nosy with yourself. Ask questions that poke at your edges. What scares me most about who I am? What have I been told I can't be? What dreams did I shove in a drawer because they felt too big, too dumb, too not me? Grab a pen, spill it out, sit with it. Your shadow's been dying to talk, let it. Journaling's gold for this. Jung was obsessed scribbling his own depths, urging his patients to track their dreams, those raw, unscripted dispatches from the unconscious. Ever wake up from a dream that sticks with you? Maybe you're falling, fighting, or chasing something you can't name. Write it down. Look for patterns, symbols, vibes, echoes. I once had a dream about a locked door that kept coming back. Turns out it was my brain nudging me toward a career shift I'd been too chicken to face. What's your shadow muttering through your sleep? Now picture this. Blending your shadow into your life is like a painter finally daring to use black, gray, deep blues. Without them the canvas is fine, safe, even, but it's flat. Add the dark and it sings with depth. Accepting your shadow doesn't mean letting it run wild. It's about saying you're human, you're me. That shift doesn't just free you, it softens you toward everyone else. We're all hauling shadows around. It's the thread that ties us together. This isn't a quick fix. It's a slow burn, a lifelong dance. But every step sharpens your purpose, quiets the noise in your head, and lets you live truer. Here's a twist. Jung thought this personal work ripples out, feeding the collective unconscious, the shared pool of human experience we all dip into. Face your shadow, and you don't just lift yourself, you nudge the world a little higher. Next, we're getting practical. How to weave this into your days, juice up your relationships, your creativity, your whole existence. The biggest truth's still coming. Hold on tight. Now, let's roll up our sleeves and get real about living this shadow stuff. Knowing it's there is step one, but the real shift happens when you weave it into your bones. Start with radical honesty. No filters, no dodging the ugly bits. Look yourself square in the face and admit, yeah, I get petty sometimes, or I'm terrified of being seen as weak. It's not about wallowing in guilt, it's about owning what's there. Think of it like tackling a cluttered garage. You can't sort it or use it until you stop pretending the junk doesn't exist. Try this next time you're rattled, fuming at a rude driver, spooked by a big choice, or weirdly starstruck by someone's glow. Hit the brakes. Why is this rattling me? What's it dragging up? Maybe a friend's non-stop bragging irks you because it echoes your own buried itch to shine, or your fear you never will. It's raw at first, sure. Blaming's easier than digging, but this isn't about kicking yourself. It's about lighting up the corners you've kept dark. Jung had a quirky move for this. Chat with your shadow like it's a guest at your table. Sounds odd, right? But it works. Grab a notebook, close your eyes, picture it sitting there, a version of you, maybe rougher, quieter, angrier. Ask it, why are you here? What are you shielding me from? What do you need to feel heard? I tried this once with a knot of resentment I couldn't shake. Turns out it was less about the jerk who'd wronged me, and more about a kid me promised to never let anyone close enough to hurt me again. You can journal it, meditate on it, even sketch it if that's your thing. The point, give your shadow a mic. It's not out to ruin you, it's been trying to help, in its own clumsy, sidelined way. You might uncover a fear that's been trailing you since grade school, or realize a weakness you've cursed is a strength itching to break free. Relationships are where this gets messy and magic. Your shadow doesn't just haunt your head, it spills into how you connect. Ever notice the same argument on loop with your partner, or the same type you keep dating, like clockwork? Jung said people are walking mirrors, flashing our blind spots back at us. That coworker who drives you up the wall with their neediness might be pinging your own hushed craving for approval. Don't just grit your teeth, ask, what's this stirring in me? I once kept clashing with a friend who'd cancel plans last minute. Drove me nuts till I saw it was less about her and more about my own terror of being unreliable. Flip the lens and conflict turns into a classroom. It's not about them sucking, it's about you growing. And bonus, you start cutting others slack, seeing their shadows too. Creativity. Quote, see where this catches fire. Jung saw the shadow as a stash of untapped juice. Energy you've spent hiding that could fuel something epic. That anger you bottle could power a crusade for what's right. That itch to be noticed might drive a